Happy Wednesday, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the second installation of Sojourn's Digital 101 webinar series for travel marketers. I'm Molly Shane, a sales executive here at Sojourn, and I will be your host as we continue our five-part series. As we continue to watch things unfold in regards to the pandemic and its effect on the hospitality industry and our lives, we wanted to utilize this time to reset, refocus, and hone in on some of the things that we can control. So this series is an opportunity for hospitality marketers to get a better handle on the very fundamentals of online advertising by walking through each and every channel you can leverage to reach your ideal audiences. So if you weren't able to join us for October's webinar, we kicked off this Digital 101 mini-series with an intro into the multi-channel approach. So today, we begin to take a magnifying glass to each individual channel that make up your online strategy, starting with programmatic display. We'll kick things off by giving an overview of what display advertising is. Then we'll discuss the different types of display marketing, including static banner ads, native ads, dynamic, video, you name it. From there, we'll jump into programmatic creative best practices and follow up with a Q&A. Our hope is for you to take away a baseline understanding of display media, be able to describe what you found to be effective in the space, and then ultimately provide you the opportunity to ask all the display questions you've been dying for answers to. So grab your second cup of coffee, settle in, and let's jump into things. So in case some of you don't know who Sojourn is, we are a travel data company specializing in highly targeted online marketing campaigns for hotel, attraction, and destination clients. Our access to real-time travel data allows us to find new guests heading to your market, introduce them to your brand, and drive them to your business in the form of a direct booking. So let me introduce you to our speakers. We have some of Sojourn's finest with us today. First up, we have Sojourn's Director of Ad Operations, JJ Tigis. Following JJ, we will have the fabulous Laura Barker, who is a creative manager here at Sojourn. Laura, do you mind telling listeners just a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So first of all, I just want to call out nice idea to wear this shirt today, guys. Great minds think alike, right? So I'm the creative manager here at Sojourn. So I help run our ad design team. I am based in our Omaha, Nebraska office. And I also help run all of our A/B testing efforts for display and social media as well. So yeah.
Thanks, Laura. We're super excited to hear from you. And before we jump into the presentation, why don't you also introduce yourself, JJ?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm JJ Tigis. I'm the Senior Director of Ad Ops here at Sojourn. Like Laura, I'm also based in Omaha. And what my title means is that the teams in my group are responsible for the execution of the marketing campaigns that we run from our clients. And that's from the time that we sign the contract all the way through until the end when the campaign is finished delivering. And that's a lot of different aspects to that, and a lot of which I will cover in my upcoming slides.
Thanks, JJ. So before we get started on your presentation, I do want to remind listeners that we will be hosting a live Q&A session with JJ and Laura at the end of the webinar. So submit your questions throughout the show for us by using the control webinar panel. All right, JJ, over to you.
Cool. Thank you, Molly. Okay, so let's see if we can answer this question, what is programmatic display, which is hopefully one of the reasons why you guys are here today, or if you're not here today, you're watching this later on. But let's see if we can answer this question. Okay, so for me, the best way to answer the question is let's take a step back and look at some historical framing in order to answer it. So the goal today is in many ways the same goal that it's always been. Find the eyeballs of your potential customers and get your marketing message in front of them. So if we look at that evolution, kind of go back to the early 1900s, we can go newspapers, then radio, billboards, TV, now online. And that evolution has always been about delivering content to eyeballs and surrounding it with advertising. Now, the downside today is, as you guys know just as well as I do, is that the places where your customers spend time and consume content is much more fragmented than it used to be back in the early days. And I mean, really, it's much more fragmented than it was even 15, 20 years ago. But the upside is that it's much easier to determine the effectiveness of your messaging today. So as we move forward to today, thank you, we now see that 47% of all global travel ad spend is digital. Now, for myself, I started my online marketing career, as you would call it, back at Yahoo in 1999, as I date myself. But that means that I've seen this evolution up close and personal, and it has been wild to see, what I would call the inevitable change of where money is spent, because it just makes more sense to spend the bulk of that money for your travel marketing on digital. Okay, so we have a little bit of a historical lesson on advertising, a little look into that evolution to get us to where we are today. So let's talk about how programmatic advertising works. Now, note that the fundamental piece is still the same. Advertising supports content, and that's the same online as it is offline, the same today as it was back in the days when newspaper was really the only way to deliver content to folks. The difference now with programmatic is that you don't need 15 different insertion orders or contracts to display your ad to your potential customer on 15 different websites. So as we see our slide, you identify the target audience, you can bid on real time or inventory that matches that target. If we think about it from a very simple perspective, you have a potential customer, they open a website to read a news story. As they're opening that website, that organization or that company that runs that website sends a little message out to the marketing community, hey, I've got this user here who's about to read this content. Does anybody want to put an ad in front of them? If that matches somebody in our database and traveler profiles, which I'll get into later, and we win that, then we can send the ad over to that website, and boom, right as they're reading the article, the ad gets displayed in front of them. Now, the nice part about that is because it's so real time and it happens so fast, and you notice when you load pages online or anywhere, there really isn't a delay unless you have a bad internet connection. So all of that stuff is happening in milliseconds and happening every single time you're loading a page. So those examples that I mentioned there is really just looking at what are the different ways that people can see these programmatic ads, can see the ad to get to the right place, to the right user at the right time. So we could be like in our first example there on a laptop, second example there in mobile. Both of those would be what I would call a more traditional content environment where you had a website with professionally generated content, or you could see on our third example over there on the right, you have an ad being displayed in a social media environment where most of the content is user generated. Okay, next slide. All right, thank you. So we've explained the display the ad part of the equation for programmatic. So now let's explain the how do you know which person should see an ad part. So as you can see, we've named this the user journey, but really it's about how our platform gets that audience data and uses it for targeting. So traveler, potential customer, searches on a website for a flight. What you don't see in that box is we have a contract, Sojourn does, with that website that has all the flight search data. And that contract allows us to place a pixel on the site to pass that consented information back to Sojourn on where that person is looking for a flight. That search data, along with the user's cookie, is passed into our traveler audience profile, and you can really just think of that as a giant database. And we are able to kind of dump all of those profiles into our giant database, use some of our human intuition and knowledge with some help from our artificial intelligence and machine learning that we have to properly, segment or slice and dice those audiences into the most effective audiences for a particular marketer's needs. And we manage that through platform like the Google marketing platform. And really what that marketing platform does is that allows us to connect to that auction environment that I described a few slides ago. So that is kind of that conduit to there. It is the interface through which we can see the auction, and then we can get back after we win the auction to grab one of our ads based on one of our traveler profiles out of our database, send it through the magical interwebs, and boom, then it displays on the site where the user is consuming the content. And now if we've done our job effectively and we have influenced or engaged someone to then book, for example, a hotel room online, and we get paid for that, we will then take a portion of that payment and kick it back to our partner there in that first box for the website that had the flight search information. Okay, so let's really get into the meat of it here on the prospecting and retargeting slide. So as we're identifying the right person / potential customer to show an ad, they almost always fall into two distinct buckets: prospecting and retargeting. So you can see in our what I would call the dream to destination funnel, or AKA the purchase funnel. We can use our identification process that I've described in the previous slides to find potential customers, get your marketing messages in front of them, and to get them interested and driven to your website. Now, once they've made a stop there, as we get kind of down to the bottom of the funnel, since 98% of the site visitors won't convert on first site visit, we can use that retargeting data layered with and intertwined with our prospecting data to help drive conversions. And for me and from my experience, this is where I see most marketers make their biggest mistake, in that they treat prospecting and retargeting separately, or they might even spend money with separate vendors for each. And my experience says it's much more effective when you use both audiences in combination. Okay, so this one's pretty simple. It's just a visual example of the process that we talked through earlier for prospecting. If we look in the example, the traveler, potential customer, visits American Airlines to do a flight search. American Airlines, as a data partner of ours, allows us to get that consented information back, like we talked about. The visitor then surfs to other sites, or as I like to call it, kind of conducts their life online, just like the rest of us do. In our example here, they're on Travel and Leisure. They see the Best Western ad, they're engaged, inspired, and they come back to bestwestern.com to do a booking. And then these slides are actually from our case study with Best Western. I think they're McCarran property in Las Vegas. And then the next slide, similar to our prospecting slide, but this is just the example for retargeting. But let's really hone in on the key difference between the two slides. So in the prospecting slide, we kicked off the process because a potential traveler visited one of our partner websites. In that case, it was American Airlines. Here, we kick off the process when a potential traveler visits your website. So in this case, this was Blue Hawaiian Helicopters from our case study with them. I believe they used, well, they used all of our programmatic display, but I believe their results were 8-to-1 ROI for their spend. But you notice the only difference is they start at Blue Hawaiian and then they end at Blue Hawaiian. In between, they conduct their life online just like everyone else. In the previous one, it was start at American, conduct your life online, end up at Best Western. Okay, so last couple slides for me, and then I'll kick it over to Laura. So this one I really like because it really gets at the core question of like, why do you go through all of that prospecting effort and focus so intently on the purchase funnel? And why do we want to drive users to your site and keep re-engaging them with that? And that's simply because there's plenty of data and studies out there, and certainly my own experience, says this as well, that there's a 400% plus boost in responses to retargeting ads, which makes it easily one of the most effective tools for advertising. But I think people can get caught up in the fact of just thinking that it's just the retargeting, when in reality there was a lot of hard work to get somebody into the retargeting bucket in the first place. So if you can't do the prospecting, and if we can't get potential folks interested and engage with the idea of coming to your website, then they can't become retargeting prospects in the first place. So that's why for me, it's such a holistic view, and those two audiences must be viewed together and intertwined together. Okay, so to summarize our benefits of programmatic display. So we have the display ads to captivate the potential customers. We can drive those direct bookings on the website, deliver awareness, brand loyalty as kind of a byproduct of that direct booking. We can re-engage the travelers who visited your site, interact with the ad, and then we have that big selection of creatives, which Laura is going to talk about here in a second, to engage creatively through every stage of the funnel. But for me, the key is that last part, the every stage of the funnel. And that's why I'm such a fan of display marketing in general and programmatic display in particular, because for me, it's the only way to consistently engage potential customers throughout the entirety of that purchase funnel that we looked at a few slides ago. So video, search ads, print ads, radio, those all have their place in sections of that funnel, and they can all be somewhat effective in the pocket in the funnel in which they operate, but only programmatic display allows you to consistently get your messaging in front of customers from before they even get into the funnel all the way through the booking event that happens at the end of the funnel. Okay, so with that, I will kick it over to Laura.
Hey. I think you had one more slide after this one, actually.
Oh yeah, I totally do. Sorry, go ahead.
Nope,
You stay there though, Laura. Stay with me for support here. So when we talk about the measuring the success of the programmatic campaign, and we get into the reasons why I'm such a fan of it, you can hear a lot of people talking about different things. So page views, cost per action, click-through rates, return on investment, time on the site, reach. All of those items relate to interacting effectively with the ads, which Laura's gonna talk about next. But you can see all of these items possibly in your campaign reporting. It can be very confusing as to where you want to focus your efforts and your attention. But for me, it's really about that cost per action on a view through conversion. It's about minimizing the idea that I need to have somebody make a direct interaction with an ad and then take a direct action, It's really about, can I influence somebody through the viewing of the ad, through my great creatives, and then have them eventually make a booking on my website. Okay, so my last slide here on the programmatic success story for Think Iowa City and Sojourn. So this would be a similar case study to what we had earlier for the Best Western example with McCarran or the Blue Hawaiian helicopters. You can see the results on the right side. I don't need to go through them in detail, but the objectives that they had, I think, would be very similar to a lot of the folks who are listening to this call. Stand out in a competitive destination market. How do I do that with a multi-channel strategy using video, native, and display? And they have both of their audiences, the in-state visitors and the out-of-state football fans, and that can be very similar for my drive market and then my out of market coming into my city for my hotel. And you can see all the hotel bookings and the flight confirmations and the estimated spend that we were able to drive for Iowa City. And the nice thing is, even though click-through rate can be a somewhat misleading success metric, it can be an effective metric for determining engagement with the ads. And you can see that great click-through rate that we're able to drive for their native ads, and then the total number of visits that we're able to drive to the Iowa City targeted web pages. There's the slide I was looking for originally.
Now it's my turn.
Yes, now it's my turn. Okay, Laura, take it away for the types of ads and creative pieces.
Sweet. Thanks, JJ.
Yep.
All right. I know JJ touched on a few different types of ads you can run on programmatic display. So I'll explain what some of those different types of ads are and what sets them apart from one another. So first up, let's talk about native ads. The thing about native ads is they don't really look like ads. Native ads blend in and match the look and feel of the page they're on, making them look like a typical article or post you may be interested in. One of the benefits of native advertising is it's a soft way to sell to travelers. They're exposed to the advertising content without it sticking out like a sore thumb. Not only do viewers spend almost the same amount of time reading native ads as they do editorial content, but as noted in a recent Forbes article, they also pay 53% more attention to native advertising when compared to banner ads. The Content Marketing Institute also reports that 70% of consumers say they prefer to learn about a product or service through content rather than traditional advertising. So as you can see, this is an ad type you want to include in your multi-channel advertising. And then unlike native ads, a banner ad is like a billboard. It stands out as a paid ad and is a hard sell to travelers. But if it's visually pleasing and striking enough, it will catch their eye and get them to click on it. So what you see here is a static JPEG ad, and static ads consist of just a single image file with no audio, video, or additional fancy features to it. It's just a plain old image. Whereas this is an animated HTML5 ad. And I'm sure when it came on the screen, you noticed right away that it's a lot more eye-catching and engaging. Animated HTML5 ads make it easier to create a narrative that the target audience can easily connect with, as well as capture their attention. We actually performed an A/B test between static and animated HTML5 ads, and what we found is animated HTML5 ads had a 13% higher click-through rate and resulted in 8% more converters than traditional static JPEG ads. Based on these results, our ad design team has made an active effort to provide all of our customers with animated HTML5 ads, such as the one you see here. And then everyone has a different wants or needs. And so with dynamic display ads, you can provide personalized and relevant ads by targeting the specific interests of travelers. Unlike traditional ads that remain the same for all viewers, like the one on the previous slide, dynamic ads automatically adapt to an individual. The way this is done is dynamic display ads use feed data to fill in the ad's information based on the preferences and intent signals that a particular traveler has already shown an interest in through their online behavior. For example, if a traveler showed interest in visiting New York, you could have your ad show New York as the destination in your copy and the price to fly there. So in this example, they'd see the ad on the far right of this page rather than the other two. Some other dynamic elements you could include are different images, such as showing someone interested in hiking, a picture of your Rocky Mountain tour rather than your bus tour. You can also localize the content based on a traveler's language preference, such as showing someone in Spain, copy that's in Spanish. And then dynamic ads also make it easy to create urgency by highlighting that there are only 3 tickets left for an upcoming festival, or 5 days remaining on a special promotion at your hotel, and then counting down each day without having to create a new ad each and every time. By delivering relevant ads to travelers, you're able to provide them with a more engaging ad experience. Keep in mind though, that dynamic ads may require a larger budget just to get the most out of them, as well as regular maintenance, that data feed I was talking about, to ensure the information is accurate and always up to date. And then similar to native ads, Facebook and Instagram ads can flow right into a traveler's social media feed, blending in with posts from their friends and family. By regularly showing up in travelers' feeds and allowing them to interact with your brand, it creates a sense of credibility and an eagerness to listen to what you have to say. Facebook and Instagram ads offer a variety of ad types, including carousel ads, such as the one shown here, where travelers can swipe through up to 10 images or videos in a single ad, as well as single image ads, which is exactly like it sounds. It's just a single image or video with any details you want to share in that ad copy above it. By advertising on social media, it puts your brand in front of travelers early in their search. And with the additional brand visibility, more leads will visit your website and the chance of converting them increases. Facebook has found more than 50% of travel companies see increased bookings due to a Facebook presence. So make sure you're keeping social pages up to date with the latest and greatest, and start building out a plan to advertise on this channel, I'd say. And then last but definitely not least, video ads. Making video part of your strategy allows you to engage with audiences that ignore text and banner ads. Video is becoming an increasingly important channel, with 66% of travelers saying that online videos inspire them to visit a new place, and 82% of internet traffic becoming video over the next few years. And video is an excellent way to put your brand in front of travelers and inspire them when they're just starting to search for their trip. Videos have the ability to create effective and influential storylines that convey a lot of information in a short period of time. And when I say a short period of time, I mean video ads are typically 15 to 30 seconds in length, with 15 seconds being considered the optimal amount of time to get your message across while keeping viewers engaged. With video ads, you can also experiment with background music, camera angles, dialogue, just to see how they connect with your audience. By using powerful tactics and engaging messages, you're able to show travelers the beauty and excitement of your destination that they're likely to remember, and better yet, remember your brand. And so now that you know some of the different ad formats available to you with programmatic display, let's talk about creative best practices to help you get the most of your ads. But really quick, poll time, I want to ask a question. When looking for a digital advertising partner, do free creative services such as the creation of display banners factor into your decision to work with them? Yes or no? Just think, you wouldn't have to hire like an agency or someone from your staff to help you create these ads. Like, is that valuable to you? Are you looking for that? Yes, no, maybe so. Oh, yes, this is pretty important to a lot of people, which is great. That's great to know. And just so you all know, at Sojourn, we actually offer free ad design services to all of our customers. And I'll say that again. free, completely free for all of our customers. So the next few slides that I'm going to be sharing with you show some examples of the ads we've actually created for our customers. Okay, so we'll jump into best practices. So best practice number 1. When creating your ads, make sure to include a clear and simple brand logo so they know who the ad is for and can recall it throughout their path to purchase. The images you use throughout your ads should be clear and high quality so travelers can clearly see what your hotel or attraction is like. We actually conducted an A/B test on images used for hotels. And in this test, we focused on exteriors, bedrooms, lifestyle images. So that's like people hanging out together, such as like a family. And then amenities, which would be like your bar or your pool. And what we found is that exterior images had a 55% higher click-through rate and an almost 4% higher conversion rate, whereas lifestyle and amenity images had a 22% lower conversion rate on average. And then you also want to make sure you're pairing your eye-catching images with compelling ad copy. When coming up with copy, make sure you're using clear and simple text to describe your property, attraction, or brand, such as explore the San Diego Sea Caves or a paradise getaway for nature lovers. You want to make sure your copy is easy to read and understand. So we recommend using 80 characters or less to avoid overcrowding your ad space. But be sure to avoid using copy that's not generic or could be considered clickbait, such as, "You won't believe the special we have going on." This could cause travelers to lose trust in you and your brand and could require quite a bit of time just to regain that trust with them again. And when deciding on a call to action, make sure it correlates with what you want the viewer to do next and what your performance goal is. If you have a conversion rate goal type, consider using something to target travelers lower in your sales funnel, such as book now or get deal. Whereas if you're trying to grab the attention of travelers higher in your sales funnel, you can use call to actions like learn more or explore Greece. And then don't be afraid to showcase your prices in your ads. This can only help you get more qualified leads, as well as surprise and delight travelers who may not have realized they can afford your destination or attraction. If your pricing varies from day to day, use copy like rate from $99 a night or starting at 74 euros per day. This way, travelers have an idea of what your base starting at rates are and will understand that they go up from there. We also performed an A/B test on this and found that by including the starting at room rate on ads resulted in a 7% lift in the rate, as well as a 12% lift in the conversion rate compared to ads that didn't include the room rate. So don't be shy to include your prices. And then one final best practice for you, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. Just take a look at the page on your website that you're linking to. That's a landing page. Your ads should take viewers to a relevant landing page. For example here, Valencia Hotel Group has an ad that talks about their glamping package. When a traveler clicks on their ad, it takes them to a landing page that further describes what they can expect with the glamping package and a button to book a reservation. Aside from making sure your landing page correlates to your ad, you also want to localize it in the same language. So you wouldn't want to be served an ad in your native language only to be sent to a site that you can't read or understand. And neither do travelers that you're serving ads to. So just make sure before you build out a multi-language campaign that your website translates into all of the languages you want to create ads for. This will ensure you provide the best possible user experience to travelers and will help you provide more direct bookings. And that's it. Q&A.
Thank you both. Very informative. I definitely learned some things. Hopefully you did too. Thanks for all the questions that were submitted throughout the presentation as well. I know we also had some sent in ahead of time, so let's jump in and take a peek at those. So as a reminder, you can also continue to submit your questions in the webinar control panel throughout the Q&A. So to kick things off, this one is for JJ. how should travel brands think of audience segments, or what practices do you recommend on how to segment people's audiences?
Yeah, that's a good one. And that's kind of feels like it'd be a foundational type of question uh, for a marketer. And, my general advice is you let that segmenting be dictated by what you're trying to do with your marketing. So, for example, if you are trying to do branding work or do awareness raising type of work, then great. You can heavily segment and target your audience based on the profiles of the people that you want the messaging to be exposed to. But if you're doing a lot of like the type of stuff that we do, which is conversion based, performance based, like I really want my advertising or my marketing to be able to be tied back to a very specific outcome, then my advice is always don't segment the audience, don't target the audience, leave it more open and let somebody like us apply the expertise that we have and do the segmenting and the targeting and figuring out, kind of like we had on that previous slide, how to get the right message to the right person at the right time. Like that's the expertise that we have. So let us leverage that expertise and drive those bookings, in the most effective way possible.
Got it. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like I have a lot of conversations around, hey, we really want to hone in on this specific market. So let's put this amount of impressions where, a lot of times it's like, hey, let's not outsmart the data, but let the data, dictate where we're serving those. So you would agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Perfect. And this question is more toward Laura. So are there tools or resources you recommend for those that, let's say, can't afford to create their own videos or creative assets?
Yeah. So there are some pretty cool tools out there. So there's a tool called Crello, so Crello, which I believe you can get it for free to download a few different assets, and then I think it's like $5 a month after that. But you can make like video ads and Facebook designs over on there. Canva is also another popular one, Canva. And same thing, you can make videos, posters, anything you need there. Google Web Designer, sorry, I'm gonna have a whole bunch here. Google Web Designer, you can make free like animated HTML5 banner ads over there. Facebook also has like a cool video tool where it'll combine your different image assets and turn it into a video. Or you can also hit up Sojourn. Like I said, we have designers on staff who are professionals who make travel ads, and we do it for free. So why not capitalize on that? Save your time there. And then we also have a tool called Video Lab. I didn't talk about that in my presentation, but we have a tool called Video Lab that turns photos actually into animated videos. Which, I mean, I can't even like properly explain it. Like you visually have to see it. It's wild to see how it literally moves like your boats around and people and stuff like that. But yeah, so those are the tools I would recommend.
Awesome. And JJ, what measurements do you recommend travel brands use to measure success of a display campaign, whether that be like a click-through rate or cost per attribution?
Yeah, that's a good one. I touched on this one a little bit on the second to last slide there when we looked at all the different metric types. From my own point of view, based on my experience and my time at Sojourn, I usually advise folks to try to get away from the view of a direct action leads to a booking and try to think of it more holistically and try to view someone from the top of that funnel that we looked at, like all the way down through the bottom. So really the only way you can do that is some type of cost per action type of metric, or maybe it's a percentage or share of your booking that gets sent back. Like but it's something that is viewing, I spent this much money and this is the amount of money that I got back in actual ticket sales or room bookings or whatever it might be. I think that the challenge that you run into when you really focus on that direct action type of thing, where I want to see somebody take a direct action and then immediately see a booking, is that you really are then cherry picking from specific points, in that dream to destination or in that purchase funnel. And I don't like that idea. So really what that then forces you to do is you have to use view through as your metric for conversions. So if I get away from the idea that someone has to take a direct action on an ad after they've seen it, then what I really want to track is, did they see the ad? And then sometime later, did they take an action? That is what is most important. Again, if you agree with my supposition on viewing somebody holistically from the top of that funnel to the bottom, instead of trying to cherry pick effectiveness based on a very thin layer of where they are in that funnel. And by the way, from my own experience at Sojourn, because I've been here from almost the beginning of the company, I've seen that evolution from just that straight static type of display ad to now our multi-channel offering, where you are more effectively able to engage somebody, through video, through social, through search, and through programmatic display, and that covers the entirety of the funnel. And that's why you can hear that come through in my answers. You hear me focusing on it right now. Like, that's why that part is so important to me, and that's why I want to try to get people to change their mindset in how they view, kind of their success metrics.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And maybe Laura, you can even shed some light on this, but we found, while a click through on a display ad is a great form of engagement, clicks don't always lead to bookings, right?
I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to be a booking, but then you have retargeting that plays into it. So if they click on it, you can also then retarget to that person. So, you still want to get your clicks, because then in the future, weeks down the line, they could always book later. So, I think clicks are just as valuable as your conversions.
Perfect. Yeah, and it sounds like it's really just part of that full funnel targeting.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So as far as like campaign messaging goes, Laura, how long do you think advertisers should, really gear their messaging around COVID-19?
I think that kind of just depends on your market and kind of what you have going on. So like if things are starting to kind of open up again, by all means, like make your advertising standard, like your book now call to action, standard messaging. I think you should still definitely have messaging on your website explaining kind of how you're handling things. Like, is there social distancing? Like, what are your cleaning procedures? Things like that. But I don't think you need to highlight it in your ads. But if you're kind of in a lockdown kind of location, you can use different kind of messaging just to re-inspire travelers with copy. Like a lot of people are doing like staycations. You can also use call to actions that are more like learn more, book now, stay later. I know we had a customer, it was actually Valencia Hotel Group, and they changed their copy to be more inspirational. They showed pictures of like drive market, so like people on a road trip, and then they used a call to action for book now, stay later, and that change honestly drove 4,000% more conversions over the following month. So like that can truly make a big difference based on how you're targeting people and what's going on in your market, I'd say.
Got it. Perfect. So another question, probably geared more toward Laura, is, as we're heading into this retail e-commerce season, how should travel marketers be shifting their budgets and messaging to engage these online shoppers booking travel accommodations?
Yeah, so obviously, I don't think a lot of people are going to be going out holiday shopping this year with the whole pandemic kind of going on. So everybody's going to be online a lot more. So it's a great time to get your ads out there in front of these viewers, these travelers, everybody. So I think you should definitely capitalize on Cyber Monday and Black Friday promotions. And I think even maybe doing like a New Year's Eve promotion, like consider doing something with that, because I think people are going to be really pumped to put 2020 behind them and welcome 2021 in rapidly. So I think that could also benefit too. We've also been seeing a lot of people just promoting 2021 holiday travel in general, just like come visit us in 2021. So they could do that too, if you're not open right now and can't necessarily do the Black Friday kind of promotion.
Perfect. Another one that came in that I think is interesting, JJ, is what portion of my overall marketing budget do you recommend to be allocated toward display efforts versus other channels?
Good one. I don't know that I can give like a specific answer. Like, yeah, the formula says spend 70% of your money on display and 25 on this. And like there's not really a set formula for that. But again, if we go back to our idea of thinking about somebody holistically throughout that display, or throughout that purchase funnel, what we know is as somebody is conducting their life online, as I mentioned a few times, they are interacting with a lot of different mediums as they're consuming their content. So they have traditional online display, they're interacting with video, they're on Google or Bing or somewhere else, and they're getting search content and search ads, and they're also all over social media. And so, but from our perspective, social media is just part of online media and display, because it's, if we go back to my fundamental idea around, we're following the eyeballs. Where are the eyeballs today? They're in all of those different places, and social media is clearly a big part of where they are today. We just want to make sure that we're getting the messaging in front of them in those different places. And that's the nice thing about using a multi-channel approach from the top of the funnel all the way down through the bottom, is that in different areas, you are getting different types of exposure, and you're doing different things. At the top of the funnel, you're getting them interested, you're getting them inspired, you're getting them engaged, and at the bottom of the funnel, you're really driving that booking and finishing off that process. So, for me, it's like if you're spending most of your money in that full funnel approach, then you're getting pieces of everything, and that's, again, to me, where you should be spending the money.
For sure, for sure. And I think a lot of advertisers get kind of hung up on like, oh, this month my SEM did really well, and
Yeah.
my display didn't do as hot, so I should move all of my money to SEM next month.
Yeah.
How would you address that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes total logical sense, right? Like that's, you want to be able to prove like effectiveness back to, let's say, your boss or someone else, or you might be the owner. You want to prove effectiveness to yourself. The challenge with doing that, though, is, hopefully you're getting tired of me saying it now, but because there's such interconnection and interplay with that, the display part of the money that you spent most likely really kind of primed the pump and set you up to have a great month for SEM. And if you take away the display part of that, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to notice the effectiveness of your SEM is not going to be the same as it was when you were running the display. So for me, those, all the different styles are so connected to each other, and because they do different things, some do better at inspiration, some do better at engagement, some do better at converting to the booking. When you move too much from one to the other, then you kind of take out a necessary step in that ladder, and then you can't as easily get to the top. But to be clear, I fully understand why there's just an innate human desire to do that, because you want to be efficient and you want to say, no, this is more effective.
For sure. So forever be filling your sales funnel is what I'm getting
Yeah,
out
right.
of that.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Perfect. Laura, how often do you recommend changing out creatives?
Good question. I would say a minimum every 6 months. Like that's like bare minimum. I mean, ideally you should be changing them out like quarterly or once a month, I would say, just because you don't want like your travelers to get banner blindness and just start ignoring your ads because they're seeing the same thing. They're like, I've seen this before, same promotion, whatever. When I like changing out your creatives though, doesn't mean you can only run one campaign though. So you could still run like a retargeting campaign as well as a brand awareness campaign, which can have two totally different like creatives applied to it as well. So just that's something to keep in mind.
Perfect. Perfect. And then JJ, back to you. How long or how often, I guess, do you typically continue to retarget a website visitor if their first visit doesn't result in a booking?
Man, if I had the magic answer to this one, it would, you could really hone in on the effectiveness and just knock it out of the park. So the right answer is there is no right answer, but you are trying to walk. I think the best way to answer is to say you're trying to walk a fine line between. I don't want to display so many ads to the user that they hate me. They don't like me. They're like, I see that. Why do I see this ad every single time, everywhere that I go? And I don't want to do so little that I don't re-engage them, right? Go back to our stat on 98% of the visitors don't book on their first visit to the website. So we know we need to re-message them, and we don't exactly know how much is too much because nobody raises their hand online and says, okay, I don't want to see that ad anymore. Like that's enough. Um, so, we often use frequency capping in our advertising, and especially with retargeting, to try to get into that fine line. You probably, to give some type of hard number, you're probably somewhere in that 3 to 7 exposure range for giving someone that retargeting messaging after they've been to the site once, and trying to get them to re-engage and make that final booking. Once you're getting into double digits and beyond, you can get into slightly dangerous territory for, upsetting someone or turning them kind of into an anti fan of your establishment because they're getting too much messaging. So it's probably not the best answer, but that's, it's to say that there is no right answer. And I think what you want to make sure when you're spending your money is that whoever you're spending your money with is keeping that, kind of equation of the too much and too little in mind. And as long as they're doing that and using methods to control that, like frequency capping, and taking, and making sure that once people have booked, they're out of the pool for some amount of time before they're put back in, then you should be okay.
Perfect. And I think that goes to show, people that are trying to do all of this in-house, like this is very complex and there's a lot that goes into it. So having a strategic partner is only going to help you.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, and I have the ability to look at tons of data, right? Like instead of just looking at the data for one property, and I can tell you by being able to look at all that data, I still can't give you, like what the right answer is. I just know that I can control it within a range, and I want to stay within that range. But it's not easy to do, especially when you're in a multi-channel type of environment and you're displaying ads to people that are different styles, different ways on different websites, and all the tracking issues that go into that. And how do I know that this person is the same person that saw the video ad 6 hours ago, and all of that stuff? Very, very complicated.
Definitely. Definitely. All right, well, there's still a bunch of great questions that are being submitted, but we are running a little short on time. So we'll do our best to reach out to all of the questions that didn't get answered here on the webinar, but we'll get in touch on an individual basis. So thank you both for addressing those questions. And I think that about wraps things up. So I want to thank JJ and Laura again for being with us today and sharing your wealth of knowledge. And a huge thanks to everyone on the webinar for taking the time to be with us and submitting those questions. So I hope you found a few takeaways, and no sweat if you had to walk away for a minute to let the dog out or answer the doorbell and talk to the lawn care people like I did. We'll be sharing this recording with you all afterwards. So join us again on December 2nd as we continue our deep dive into search engine marketing. So once again, we want to make sure these webinars are valuable to you, and we're inviting you to help drive the direction of this series. So with that said, please reach out to us on our social channels and let us know what topics you want to hear and what questions you have around SEM using the hashtag #display101, or feel free to tag Sojourn in your post. We will do our best to cover all your questions on December 2nd. So stay safe and healthy, and we will see you all again next month. Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye.